Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for being here. It is a pleasure and an honor to discuss with Faisal Abbas issues that concern Saudi Arabia. A very ambitious transformation project is taking on in this country, and also issues concerning the Middle East, energy and tariffs, and Greece as well. Thank you for being here. I watched this discussion, very interesting discussion previously, which raises many questions about where we're headed. But first of all, because we're hearing news every hour about tariffs, and they have an impact on energy. And before coming in, I saw the Brent was down to $63.5 per barrel. What does that mean for the fiscal space in Saudi Arabia, for the energy production countries, and the Middle East in general?
You know, Yannis, as much as I would have loved to give you a clear-cut answer, if you had asked me this question yesterday, I would have had a very different answer. But we woke up this morning with the news coming from the United States that the tariffs have been lifted or temporarily lifted for the next 90 days. The Trump administration, I beg to differ with a lot of people who demonize it. I think they are doing excellent things on many topics with regards to rebuilding their own country. But I think the one criticism or the one question mark that everybody has is the unpredictability. So I really do not know anymore whether these tariffs are going to remain, whether they're going to be temporarily put on hold or not. But what I can tell you about Saudi Arabia's energy policy, and just to reiterate, I'm the editor-in-chief of Arab News. I'm a journalist, so I'm not a member of the government. So my understanding is as far as the information and as the analysis that I get from briefings and official positions. But Saudi Arabia has always been committed through OPEC and OPEC Plus to the balancing of the energy market, to the stabilization of the energy markets. For me, it only makes sense that if you are going to impose tariffs, that means most likely we're headed towards a recession. So the expectation would be that there will be less demand for oil, and as such, it's a normal result for prices to go down. Now, again, we could wake up tomorrow and find a completely different reality. So, until things are clear when it comes to what exactly is the tariffs policy, I wouldn't be able to give you a final answer.
Do you expect an answer from OPEC Plus, maybe to lower down the production or the quotas in the next few days? Are they be willing to do something about it?
I think, like everybody, they are very closely monitoring the situation, although the situation keeps on changing. But I have no doubt that they will make the decision that will stabilize the energy market. Look, it's a very difficult situation. We've seen what's happened in the stock market. Stock markets in many countries of the world have crashed because of this result. We've seen oil markets before, if you remember, during the pandemic, drop below zero. So the foremost priority of OPEC Plus is to ensure the stability of the energy market, because energy, although some people demonize it, is what keeps the world moving. Energy is the energy, for example, that we export from Saudi Arabia all the way to Japan, which is a net importer of energy, keeps babies in incubators alive, keep elderly in shelters or in elderly homes warm in winter. So it is not a joke. So whatever is the decision that's going to happen, they will be closely monitoring the latest developments on what is going to be the final policy on tariffs, and they will make a decision based on that.
So let's go back to our main topic for this discussion. Saudi Arabia, it's a traditional conservative Sunni country, main energy exporter for decades, but it's now going through a major transformation as an identity, as a culture, has a new leader, very ambitious new leader. What's the goal for Saudi Arabia for the next decades? What's the model we should expect from Saudi Arabia?
Well, it's a very important question, because perhaps I'm a bit biased since I am a Saudi and I live in Saudi Arabia and I report on this every day. And for me, as a person who lived outside of the country for more than 20 years, I returned in 2016, and I can tell you what has happened since 2016 till today in terms of magnitude of change outweighs the last 20 years or the 43 years that I have been alive. We've seen dramatic change. We are, of course, talking about an overall plan called Vision 2030. The main goal of it is to diversify the Saudi economy away from oil, and that's the overarching goal. However, to do that, you need to create new industries, which means you need to do a lot of social reforms as well. You cannot diversify the economy and create new industries, create new jobs, when half of your population is unemployed or forbidden from being employed. And of course, I'm talking about the previously imposed draconian laws that were against women. Those have all been removed. I know many people symbolically refer to the ban on women driving, but that was the tip of the iceberg. You know, women today enjoy more rights in Saudi Arabia than they've ever done before. We have seen women now join the army. We have seen women join the diplomatic corps. We have our ambassador to the United States, Princess Rima, who is obviously doing a great job. Women participation in the workforce jumped from perhaps 8% to over 36%, and that was the target for the year 2030. In terms of building new industries, for example, and sectors, nobody expected that the tourism industry, because a lot of people, I know a lot of people relate Greece to tourism, perhaps not many people relate Saudi Arabia apart from religious tourism, but I'm talking about expanding tourism for people who want the history and heritage experience or the sun and beach experience. The target for 2030 was 100 million visitors. And that was achieved a year and a half ago by the Ministry of, and of course, what we call Tourism Plus sector, which is culture, tourism, and entertainment, has been phenomenally successful beyond actually what was expected. And you know, the result of that is winning the World Cup in 2034, the bid for the World Cup, hosting Expo 2030, the exciting new hospitality projects that are happening. So that is one case of success. Now, what does all mean, just to wrap up on the point about the vision, because what I don't want people here to leave is thinking that this is Saudi first or Saudi only initiative. It is not, actually. For this to succeed, and here I quote His Royal Highness the Crown Prince. At FII, at the first edition, he said, I see Saudi Arabia going back to moderate Islam. And in the second FII, he said, I would like to see the Middle East becoming the new Europe. So in essence, you cannot succeed if your neighbor is suffering, and you cannot do this alone. We talk about the Saudi-Greek relations and how this fits into Vision 2030. There's a strategic council of cooperation between Greece and Saudi Arabia. Like the French are very much involved in archaeology in Al-Ula, the Greeks are very involved in archaeology in Al-Fao. They are very involved in shipping. There's a big cooperation that has been announced in the energy sector. And the best situation to be in is a win-win situation. And that has been the focus of the government since the launch of 2030.
And last but not least, also the defense sector, where Greece has sent a battery of Patriot missiles to protect also airspace in Saudi Arabia.
Allow me to, because this is a very important point, and thank you for raising it. Us Arabs, we never forget. We never forget anybody who harms us, and we never forget anybody who stands with us when we were in need of help. And definitely, as I think I tell no secret, that in the beginning of the Biden administration, the relationship with Saudi Arabia perhaps started on the wrong foot. During his campaign, he said he's going to turn Saudi Arabia into a pariah. In the first week or so, he removed the Houthis, who were firing missiles at our cities and at our airports and killing our civilians. He removed them from the terrorist list which Trump had put them in the first list. Of course, it's funny because now they're back on the terrorist list. So, you would wish that the United States would make up its mind whether they are terrorists or not. But more importantly, and mind you, whether we have ups and downs, we are a US ally, we are a US partner, we are a friend of the United States. While all of this has been happening, the Biden administration in its early days decides to withdraw the Patriot missile batteries. Now, Patriot missiles, as everybody knows, are a defensive technology, not an offensive technology. They are there, like the Iron Dome in Israel, they are there to protect civilians from attacks. And this is where Greece came in very kindly. And as a Saudi citizen, I say we owe a lot to Greece, and we thank Greece for helping protect us from the indiscriminate attacks that these missiles have had. And I think a huge part of the great relationship that Saudi Arabia and Greece enjoy politically and economically is because we realize that a friend in need is a friend indeed.
The region has transformed as well in the last few years. Saudi Arabia had a difficult relationship with Iran. There was a crisis with Qatar. There was also the war in Yemen. And how do you see now the region transforming through all this crisis? And now it's a more stable situation. Do we understand it right now?
Yes. Well, there has been a turn in Saudi foreign policy as well, especially since the Al-Ula summit, which saw us mend ties within the GCC. Look, the GCC, like the European Union, we will always have differences, but we brothers in arms. So that has moved on, and perhaps the good thing about the bad thing that happened in the early days of the Biden administration when they withdrew the Patriot missiles is that we realized that if we cannot rely on our allies to help protect us, much like what was the previous discussions now about Europe and America, then we have to sort the problem out with Iran. So with mediation from the former Prime Minister of Iraq, Khadimi, and then China took over the dossier, took over the negotiation. China served as a mediator, and of course, if people ask why China has leverage over Iran. It's one of its very few friends in the world, next to Russia, but Russia, of course, is very busy with its own issues. It has pledged aid and financial aid and military aid to Iran. So in other words, they hold leverage and they are efficient. So if my calculations is not wrong, the conversation with President Xi happened when he visited in late November or December. By March, the negotiation has been done in Beijing, and it has, fingers crossed, touch wood, it has been working so far. Why is it beneficial for us? Because if you want to have 100 million visitors come to visit you, and you have world football stars like Ronaldo playing in your stadiums and people flying over to watch championship wrestling with international stars coming, the last thing you want is a missile or a drone coming. So whether we achieve peace by might, by force, or by shaking hands, we need the peace to help us achieve our financial and economic and development targets. So far, it's working. So that sheds the light why the change in foreign policy. And as I said, so far, it has been working with Iran.
Talking about regional cooperation, there is one specific project that is taking steam recently, which is the IMEC. It's the India, Middle East, European corridor. What is Saudi view on this specific project, which is of great Greek interest?
No, definitely. Look, it has been announced. It was endorsed in the G20 summit, which happened in India. I was there, actually. And I think everybody is on board. But there is no question that October 7th derailed or slowed down a lot of things. I was in New York just before October 7, covering the United Nations General Assembly. And I remember His Royal Highness's interview, landmark interview with Fox News, where he was asked about ties with Israel. And he said, we are, for the first time saying we are getting closer and, hopefully we will achieve a Palestinian state so that we can normalize relationship, because the idea, as you rightly pointed out and as I alluded before, for this to work, for the vision to work, it's not just a vision for Saudi Arabia, it's inclusive of everybody. There is no question that October 7th and what happened since has derailed a lot of things. It has derailed the ability to link India to Europe. And of course, it has derailed normalization, any hopes of normalization with Israel until a permanent ceasefire happens in Gaza, and a pathway or a roadmap or an actual Palestinian state is announced.
We've seen recently two opposing schemes about how to solve the Gaza problem, which is the Arab Summit came up with a proposal, and also the European Union supports this proposal. On the other hand, Israel and the United States have a different view on that. How do you see that playing out in the future?
Well, it's a very good question. Look, we also need to take things in perspective. Again, perhaps I started off saying that the big question mark or the criticism of Trump is the lack of predictability, but that can also be an advantage. So if you remember, we started the year with him saying, you know, the Riviera of the Middle East, we're going to ask people from Gaza or force them to go to Jordan and Egypt, etc. I know the Arab plan that has been announced did not answer all the questions. As you rightly pointed out, it was rejected by Israel and as such rejected by the United States. But at least it got the conversation going. And even within the Arab countries themselves, it's good that they managed to reach a consensus this quickly, despite, and you know, like the European Union, there are different points of views. There are Arab countries who are completely opposed to any role of Hamas in the post-war Gaza. There are other Arab countries that say at least the political wing should stay. And this is a very divisive issue, particularly that it makes selling it to the United States a bit more difficult. Now, what we've seen, I wouldn't say is a slam dunk or a home run or a complete win, but at least it managed to slow down, you know, the idea of the Riviera of the Middle East, which, by the way, is not a bad idea as long as the Riviera of the Middle East built by the Palestinians for the Palestinians living side by side in peace with the Israelis. I think the next few weeks we will see a lot of discussions. Our foreign minister, Prince Faisal, is currently in Washington. I believe this topic is one of the discussions that are being discussed. Most likely it will also be discussed during the upcoming Trump visit. Among the Arab League themselves, especially among the more influential countries, Saudi Arabia, the United Arab Emirates, Qatar, Egypt, and Jordan, among others, there is close coordination about it, and particularly to not allow the difference in opinions to ruin it all. So trying to reach a midpoint where we can all agree on what is the best way forward.
And another question mark about the stability of the region is the Eastern Mediterranean situation. Turkey is having a serious aggression against Cyprus and Greece, and also Egypt now is in a position to have better relationships with Turkey as well. How do you see Turkey's role in the region and transforming from a partner towards some player who will sit on the fence and try to see where stands better?
Again, you know, we need to look at this at the point of time. Is the relationship with Turkey or Turkey's practices today the same as they were 10 years ago or 11 years ago or 15 years ago? I remember when the World Economic Forum held one event in Istanbul, and I remember hearing Erdogan, and my prediction became true. I said, these words are going to be very scary, because he was saying, you know, why is Turkey not a superpower? Turkey should be a superpower. Turkey should be in the Security Council. Turkey, which is, of course, all valid ambitions, but the problem is the Turkish economy or success story has been based on zero problems with its neighbors. Since the 10 years that happened, it had problems with all its neighbors. However, we have seen some pragmatism from Turkey in recent years to a more cooperative role. And you know, I have to call a fact a fact. It is, we're not dealing with the same attitude that was there before. Add to that the significant role they can now play in stabilizing Syria, which I think is a very important matter, not just for us in the Arab world, but for Europe. I'm of course talking about migration, I'm talking about refugees, I'm talking about Mediterranean stability in general. This can be a good thing. So we have to work with Turkey and work together on stabilizing Syria, because that is a priority. Syria by default is, you know, related to Lebanon, related to Jordan, and related to Israel and Iraq. So it cannot be left alone in this situation. And if that means dealing with Turkey or dealing with anybody to achieve that goal, then we have to do it.
You mentioned Syria, and I keep reminding me of the radicalization of young Muslim people that came from various countries in the Middle East and fought for the Salafi movement in Syria. Do you see this section of Islam being now more moderate, or do you see radicalization still a big threat for the region?
You know, before October 7, I used to say we managed collectively by the work Saudi Arabia is doing, by the work the United Arab Emirates is doing, and they've done really good work on that front. We managed to bury radicalism. We managed to bury extremism. But when people see the injustice that has happened, and I'm not justifying what happened in October 7, what happened in October 7 is an atrocious crime. Anybody who kills children or an innocent women and men is a criminal or is a terrorist and should be held accountable. But when that result reaches 50,000 people, mostly who are women and children, then allowing it to continue, we are only allowing radicalization to come back. And perhaps at a larger scale than what was before, because before it was controllable. You had traditional media outlets. You could just talk to Al Jazeera or talk to CNN. Now people have access through their mobile phones to TikTok, etc., and you cannot control the narrative. You know, the most shared video on TikTok after October 7 was a column written by Osama bin Laden in The Guardian from 15 years ago. Somebody took a screenshot of it. The Guardian had to take down the column because of the traffic that was coming from, it was called A Letter to the West by Osama bin Laden. So we are doing, as Arab countries, as Muslim countries, as the Gulf, and especially as Saudi Arabia, what we can to limit and to curb and to end this phenomena. As I said, the Crown Prince said it word for word. We want to go back to moderate Islam. But it takes two to tango. You know, this is why it is very important to reach a ceasefire. It's very important to find the just solution for the Palestinians, a Palestinian state, which, in my opinion, is the best guarantor for Israeli security, which, as I said earlier, it's very important for us for the interdependency of the region.
Thank you very much, Faisal, for this discussion, and enjoy your stay in Delphi.
Thank you very much.